experience an awkward tightening when performing a desired action which is not physically difficult. What happens inside the head between the time the instruction is given and the swing is complete? The first glimmer of an answer to this key question came to me at a moment of rare insight after a lesson with Dorothy. Whatever's going on in her head, it's too damn much. She's trying so hard to swing the racket the way I told her that she can't focus on the ball. Then and there, I promised myself I would cut down on the quantity of verbal instructions. My next lesson that day was with a beginner named Paul, who had never held a racket. I was determined to show him how to play using as few instructions as possible. I'd try to keep his mind uncluttered and see if it made a difference. So I started by telling Paul I was trying something new. I was going to skip entirely my usual explanations to beginning players about the proper grip, stroke, and footwork for the basic forehand. Instead, I was going to hit 10 forehands myself, and I wanted him to watch carefully, not thinking about what I was doing, but simply trying to grasp a visual image of the forehand. He was to repeat the image in his mind several times, and then just let his body imitate. After I had hit 10 forehands, Paul imagined himself doing the same. Then, as I put the racket into his hand, sliding it into the correct grip, he said to me, "I noticed that the first thing you did was to move your feet." I replied with a non-committal grunt and asked him to let his body imitate the forehand as well as it could. He dropped the ball, took a perfect backswing, swung forward, racket level, and with natural fluidity, ended the swing at shoulder height, perfect for his first attempt. But wait, his feet! They hadn't moved an inch from the perfect ready position he had assumed before taking his racket back. They were nailed to the court. I pointed to them and Paul said, "Oh yeah, I forgot about them." The one element of the stroke Paul had tried to remember was the one thing he didn't do. Everything else had been absorbed and reproduced without a word being uttered or an instruction being given. I was beginning to learn what all good pros and students of tennis must learn, that images are better than words, showing better than telling, too much instruction worse than none, and that trying often produces negative results. One question perplexed me. What's wrong with trying? What does it mean to try too hard? Playing out of your mind. Reflect on the state of mind of a player who is said to be hot or playing in the zone. Is he thinking about how he should hit each shot? Is he thinking at all? Listen to the phrases commonly used to describe a player at his best. He's out of his mind. He's playing over his head. He's unconscious. He doesn't know what he's doing. The common factor in each of these descriptions is that some part of the mind is not so active. Athletes in most sports use similar phrases, and the best of them know that their peak performance never comes when they're thinking about it. Clearly, to play unconsciously does not mean to play without consciousness. That would be quite difficult. In fact, someone playing out of his mind is more aware of the ball, the court, and, when necessary, his opponent. But he is not aware of giving himself a lot of instructions, thinking about how to hit the ball, how to correct past mistakes, or how to repeat what he just did. He is conscious but not thinking, not over-trying. A player in this state knows where he wants the ball to go, but he doesn't have to try hard to send it there. It just seems to happen, and often with more accuracy than he could have hoped for. The player seems to be immersed in a flow of action which requires his energy, yet results in greater power and accuracy. The hot streak usually continues until he starts thinking about it and tries to maintain it. As soon as he attempts to exercise control, he loses it. To test this theory is a simple matter, if you don't mind a little underhanded gamesmanship. The next time your opponent is having a hot streak, simply ask him as you switch courts, "Say, George, what are you doing so differently that's making your forehand so good today?" If he takes the bait, and 95% will, and begins to think about how he's swinging, telling you how he's really meeting the ball out in front, keeping his wrist firm and following through better, his streak invariably will end. He will lose his timing and fluidity as he tries to repeat what he has just told you he was doing so well. But can one learn to play out of his mind on purpose? How can you be consciously unconscious? It sounds like a contradiction in terms, yet this state can be achieved.
He planned on a long career in higher education, but it was on the tennis court giving a lesson where Tim had an epiphany that would forever change his life and eventually the world's approach to teaching and learning.
The initial insight was the way children learn are better than the way adults learn.
If we'd have been learning how to walk the way we learn how to play sports, our dad would have been there saying, okay, now Tommy, first you put your left foot out and you put your weight in the heel of your foot, then you sort of shift on over. No, don't shift so early.
They learn to walk and crawl and run, ride a bicycle without very much technical instruction.
This isn't just trial and error. This is trial and correction. But the correction is self-correction.
So instead of telling the tennis student, hit the ball in front of you, I would ask the tennis student, notice where your ball and racket are making connection. And the racket automatically finds the place where it feels best, sounds best, and works best.
The inner game of tennis ushered in a brand new approach to sports, education, and psychology that had never been seen before.
Recently, we invited Galway to demonstrate by showing how quickly he could teach tennis to a class of absolute beginners. Among these was a sedentary, middle-aged lady named Molly Groger.
I said, before we start playing tennis, I want you to learn to see a ball.
So you'll just be saying bounce, hit. All you need to do is watch the ball.
There was no chance for failure, just fully within 3 shots. She was making contact with the ball.
Bounce, hit.
Hear that one?
Bounce, hit.
And the body and all its coordinating mechanism is what hit the ball. And the little 10-cent computer that was giving it orders wasn't giving it orders because it was too busy saying bounce hit.
All of a sudden, everything became effortless. I said, I'm playing tennis.
She was smiling the whole time. If I had asked her afterward, how did you play? I don't know. Felt okay to me. How did I play? Well, you did in 20 minutes what takes many 3 months to learn.